In the heart of the Wild West, nestled between rugged mountains and vast, open plains, lay the small town of Red Ridge. Dusty streets wound through a cluster of wooden buildings, their sun-bleached signs creaking in the warm breeze. The air was thick with the scent of horses and leather, a constant reminder of the bustling ranchers and cowboys that filled the town. Red Ridge was a place where justice was swift and often rough. Horse theft was a frequent crime, as gallant steeds were both prized possessions and symbols of freedom. Every few weeks, whispers would spread about missing horses, and townsfolk would gather at the saloon to exchange stories of daring thieves lurking in the shadows. The sheriff's office stood at one end of the main street, a bastion of law enforcement in a town where many believed in taking matters into their own hands. People often spoke of vigilante justice, where disputes were settled by quick shows of strength rather than through courtrooms. This atmosphere made Red Ridge feel alive with tension and excitement, but also with an underlying fear. The arrival of a new judge stirred even more buzz among the residents. Rumors flew about his strict approach to crime and his willingness to uphold the law without mercy. This set the stage for a confrontation between tradition and change, particularly when it came to addressing issues like horse theft. Little did everyone know that a shocking decision was on the horizon, one that would challenge their views on justice itself. In the midst of the rising tension in Red Ridge, there was an elderly man named Caleb Old Dusty Thompson, known throughout the town for his weathered face and silver hair. Once a respected rancher, Dusty had spent decades raising horses and teaching young cowboys the art of riding. However, a series of misfortunes struck him hard. After losing his beloved wife to illness, he found himself alone, struggling to keep his farm afloat. The land he once loved became a burden, and the whispers of financial ruin echoed in his ears. In his desperation, Dusty turned to stealing horses, not out of malice but from sheer necessity. He believed that if he could sell a few stolen steeds, he might make enough money to survive another winter. But as the cold months approached, each theft weighed heavily on his conscience. He thought he was only trying to save himself, not realizing how his actions would be perceived by the townsfolk who once admired him. His gentle demeanor and kind heart were often overlooked as people painted him as just another thief. Many in town remembered the days when Dusty shared stories and laughter over drinks at the saloon. This aging horse thief wasn't just a criminal, he was a man who had lost everything and was grasping for a way to stay alive. Dusty's plight tugged at the heartstrings of some residents, igniting a flicker of sympathy amid the mounting anger toward crime. One crisp morning, just before dawn, the peaceful life in Red Ridge was shattered. A loud commotion erupted as rancher Tom Hargrove discovered that two of his prized horses were missing. Panic spread through the town as he ran to the saloon, shouting for help. The townsfolk, still bleary-eyed from sleep, gathered quickly, confusion etched on their faces as they listened to Tom's frantic tale. The news of the theft ignited a firestorm of anger and outrage. Horses were more than mere property, they symbolized strength and livelihood in this community. As whispers of who could have committed such a crime echoed through the streets, fingers began pointing in all directions. When Caleb Old Dusty Thompson's name surfaced, disbelief turned into fury. People recalled Old Dusty's struggle but found it hard to reconcile his past kindness with his current actions. Rumors spread like wildfire, with tales of Dusty's desperate need wrapping around each conversation like a shroud. It wasn't long before emotions boiled over, and heated discussions erupted outside the sheriff's office. The townsfolk's anger transformed into talk of justice, demanding that someone pay for this betrayal. As they began organizing search parties to hunt Dusty down, the atmosphere thickened with tension. What had once been a close-knit community now fractured under the weight of betrayal and fear. Little did they know that their actions would bring about an unexpected twist in the tale of Old Dusty and challenge their very concept of justice in Red Ridge. As the dust settled from the uproar of the horse theft, it became clear that a trial was necessary to address Caleb Old Dusty Thompson's actions. The new judge, a stern man named Judge Harrington, arrived in town with a reputation for strictness and zero tolerance for crime. His arrival sent ripples through the community, as many wondered how he would handle the case of an elderly man struggling to survive. On the day of the trial, townsfolk packed into the makeshift courthouse, eyes wide with anticipation and anger. Rumors swirled about Judge Harrington's willingness to impose harsh punishments, and discussions hinted at a public hanging as the ultimate justice for Dusty's crime. Some people saw this as a fitting end to his betrayal, others felt uneasy about the idea of execution for someone they once respected. As witnesses took the stand, emotions ran high. Ranchers recounted their lost horses, while neighbors shared stories of old Dusty's kindness from years before. Yet, the judge listened intently, calculating the gravity of Dusty's actions against his past. Before he could announce a decision, Judge Harrington stunned everyone by revealing plans to make the hanging a spectacle. Tickets would be sold to witness the event, heightening tensions even further as some criticized this form of entertainment in what should be a solemn occasion. This move sparked fierce debates among townsfolk about morality and justice, setting the stage for an unforeseen outcome that nobody could have predicted. As the trial concluded, Judge Harrington made a shocking announcement that sent ripples through the crowd: he would hold a rehearsal for the public hanging of Caleb "Old Dusty" Thompson. Tickets would be sold for this grim event, and the judge insisted it was to prepare the townsfolk for the solemnity of the occasion. The news spread quickly, igniting a mix of outrage and curiosity among residents. In the days that followed, conversations erupted in every corner of Red Ridge. Some townspeople were eager to witness what they believed was justice served, while others felt deeply uncomfortable with turning such a serious matter into an entertainment spectacle. The idea of paying to watch a rehearsal for a hanging felt wrong to many, especially given old Dusty's past kindness and struggles. At the general store, debates raged as ranchers argued fiercely about whether Dusty deserved this fate or if compassion should lead their actions. A few citizens suggested they boycott the event altogether, believing it would only dehumanize Dusty further. Meanwhile, others were drawn to the excitement of the tickets selling fast and wondered if they could profit from reselling them. As anticipation built toward the rehearsal day, a palpable tension hung in the air. People began taking sides, some advocating for mercy and others clamoring for vengeance. This division threatened to deepen wounds in a community already fractured by betrayal, setting up an emotional showdown that no one could predict. As the day of the hanging rehearsal drew nearer, the townsfolk found themselves immersed in a moral dilemma that challenged their beliefs about justice. In homes and shops, conversations often turned heated as people took sides. Some argued vehemently that old Dusty, despite his age and hardships, had committed a crime that warranted harsh punishment. They believed that if theft went unpunished, it would send a dangerous message, that stealing was acceptable, no matter the circumstances. On the other hand, many residents wrestled with the idea of punishing an elderly man who was known for his kindness in better days. They pointed out that Dusty had not stolen out of malice but out of desperation to survive. "What good does it do to hang a man who has lost everything?" one rancher exclaimed in a meeting at the saloon, his voice trembling with emotion. A few brave souls suggested alternatives: community service or rehabilitation instead of execution. They argued for compassion over cruelty, urging their neighbors to remember the man Dusty had been rather than just the thief he had become. Still, this viewpoint often met with staunch opposition. As opinions clashed and emotions ran high, the community became more fractured than ever before. The discussion revealed deep-seated fears about morality and justice in Red Ridge and raised difficult questions. What does it mean to truly be just? How can one weigh the scales of punishment against compassion? With uncertainty looming, the townsfolk braced for what lay ahead, knowing it would shape their community forever. The day of the hanging rehearsal dawned under a heavy, cloud-laden sky, setting a somber tone for what lay ahead. As the sun struggled to break through, townsfolk gathered in the town square, a mix of anticipation and anxiety thrumming in the air. They filled the wooden benches set up for spectators, their faces betraying a swirl of emotions: curiosity, anger, and unease. Whispers floated around like the dust stirred by boots on the ground. "Can they really go through with this?" one woman murmured to her neighbor, her eyes wide with disbelief. Nearby, a group of ranchers discussed the implications of Dusty's fate, some advocating for justice while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats, recalling the man they once knew. As the hour drew closer, a hush fell over the crowd. Judge Harrington arrived, his face set in grim determination. He climbed the wooden platform facing them, and tension tightened like a coiled spring. The townspeople awaited his words, knowing that he would dictate not only Old Dusty's fate but also the moral direction of their community. The rope hung ominously from a nearby tree, a stark reminder of what was to come. Suddenly, Dusty appeared, escorted by guards, his frail figure eliciting gasps from the crowd. He looked around with weary eyes, perhaps searching for familiar faces among those who had once admired him. As emotions surged and hearts pounded, it became clear that this moment was more than just a rehearsal, it was a reckoning for Red Ridge, a moment that would forever change its history and the people who called it home. As tension hung thick in the air, the rehearsal began. Judge Harrington stood at the makeshift podium, ready to act out the grim proceedings, when suddenly, a voice shouted from the back of the crowd. It was Sarah Jenkins, a local teacher who had known Dusty for many years. "Wait. Before this happens, can we not share Dusty's story?" This unexpected plea caught everyone off guard. The murmurs of dissent gave way to silence as Sarah stepped forward. With passion in her voice, she recounted Dusty's life, their shared laughter at the town fairs, his kindness toward children, and how he had once helped her family through hard times after losing their farm. "He's not just a thief, he's a man who lost everything," she implored. As Sarah spoke, other villagers began to remember their own experiences with Dusty, the times he had lent a helping hand or offered kind words when they were down. The mood shifted gradually as performances of justice and revenge were overshadowed by stories of humanity and compassion. Amidst the crowd, faces softened, some wiped away tears as they realized they were not just witnessing a trial but potentially an execution of someone they once admired. When Judge Harrington paused to absorb what was happening, it became clear that the need for justice might take a different form. Instead of arousing sentiments of vengeance, their collective memories sparked empathy, even leading some to consider alternatives to hanging, thus planting the seeds for forgiveness and second chances among those watching. As the crowd's emotions settled into a contemplative stillness, Judge Harrington stepped forward, his expression a mixture of authority and understanding. He had witnessed the transformation among the townsfolk, realizing that their memories of Old Dusty had sparked something deeper, compassion, which was often overshadowed by the harsh realities of justice. With a firm voice, the judge addressed the assembly. "This community is grappling with profound questions of mercy and punishment," he began. "While theft is a serious crime, we must also consider the circumstances and the man behind the actions." He paused, letting his words resonate in the tense air. After deliberating for what felt like an eternity, he ultimately decided to spare Dusty's life. Instead of hanging him, Judge Harrington proposed an alternative punishment. Dusty would serve 6 months working with the town to help others in need. He would assist with community gardens and teach young children how to care for horses, restoring connections that had once thrived in Red Ridge. The crowd erupted in a mix of relief and applause. Many felt a wave of gratitude wash over them as Dusty was given a chance to redeem himself. Some townsfolk exchanged hopeful glances, finally seeing a way forward together as a community rather than as divided factions. As Judge Harrington concluded the session, he reminded everyone that true justice should reflect not just the law but also humanity. Dusty's second chance marked not only his redemption but also a pivotal moment for Red Ridge, a turning point toward healing and unity in their shared lives moving forward. In the weeks following the resolution of Caleb Old Dusty Thompson's fate, an unexpected transformation took root in Red Ridge. The decision to spare Dusty's life and give him a chance at redemption resonated deeply within the community. Instead of continuing down a path of anger and division, the townsfolk began to engage with one another more openly, sharing their thoughts on justice, compassion, and what it truly meant to be a supportive community. Dusty's work in the community gardens and his interactions with the children sparked a renewed sense of hope. As he shared stories of his past with the younger generation, old grudges began to fade, replaced by understanding and empathy. Many residents realized that everyone has struggles and that compassion often leads to healing in ways punishment cannot. The event had become a catalyst for change, prompting discussions about fairness and the importance of second chances. Red Ridge emerged not just as a town that upheld the law, but as one that embraced humanity within its justice system. The experience taught them that while laws are meant to protect, they should also allow for understanding and forgiveness. As the seasons changed, so did Red Ridge. The bonds formed through shared struggles created a tighter-knit community that celebrated both resilience and kindness. Old Dusty had unwittingly become a symbol of hope, proof that redemption is possible. Ultimately, this chapter in their history would not only be remembered for its challenges but also for the profound lessons learned about compassion and unity in the face of adversity.